We're welcoming back Ted Savransky, professional sports bettor out in Las Vegas, and we're talking today about the NBA under-the-radar moneymaker teams that are cashing tickets against the book. And like last year, the Atlanta Hawks quietly went under the radar for a while. And this year, I'm anxious to hear Ted's breakdown on what teams he thinks are under the radar and how effective they have been against the book, and will that pattern or that trend continue. Ted, great to have you back. If you will, break this down for us, and who are the top couple teams that you like as far as being under the radar?
Well, I mean, there's always fascinating things about every NBA season. One of the reasons I love betting the NBA is that there's always these little nuances. The fascinating thing about this season so far is that the very best teams straight up have been the very best teams against the spread. You know, the Warriors and the Spurs have been the story of the NBA season, both for the mainstream audience and for the betting audience. And it's not every year that, particularly coming out of the gate over the first half of the campaign, that you see the elites really step up against the spread. But both those teams were essentially undervalued commodities coming into the campaign. And meanwhile, most of the bottom feeders, your Lakers have been awful against the spread, and your Suns have been awful against the spread, and your Nets have been a pretty bad point spread team, and on and on. Most of the weakest teams in the league have also been weak ATS. There haven't been a lot of those under-the-radar losers that have been covering point spreads. That being said, there's two teams I want to highlight today on this video. And they both come from the Western Conference. The Sacramento Kings and the Portland Trailblazers, I believe, have under-the-radar value for their supporters in the weeks and perhaps months to come.
Now, Ted, with Portland and Sacramento, would Sacramento's under-the-radar, money-making come from the totals, perhaps? Do you see them at a much more offensive pace than they've been in years past?
Well, sure. They're playing George Karl's offense right now, and they're pushing the pace at every reasonable opportunity. But I'm talking about from a point spread perspective. I'm not looking at totals here. I'm looking at point spreads. From a point spread perspective, I think Sacramento offers tremendous value right now. You know, this is a team, they haven't been to the playoffs since 2006. Okay? They are a complete afterthought in the NBA world. And anything that happens in Sacramento, it takes about a month or two for anybody else to notice. And if you haven't noticed, the Kings are playing winning basketball right now. DeMarcus Cousins is the most dominant low-post player in the game today. Forget Anthony Davis. Forget, I don't know, someone said Dwight Howard. I'm like, are you kidding? Have you watched Dwight Howard for the last 10 years? DeMarcus Cousins is that guy.
Yeah, period.
Rajon Rondo is having a truly impressive come from the dead season where, last year everything fell apart, and when he went down to Texas after leaving Boston. This is a resurgent campaign for Rondo. And with that duo, the complementary pieces have been tremendous. The Omri Caspi of the world and the Ben McLemores of the world. And, this team has a ton of shooters. So, no, the Kings aren't going to shut you down on defense. But I'll tell you what, they're winning on the road. They're stepping up in class well. They're taking care of business against weaker foes. And these under-the-radar teams like Sacramento, when they get better, when they all of a sudden are understanding George Karl's nuances on the offensive end, they tend to retain their point spread value for extended stretches. I got the Kings as a bet-on team moving forward.
I like that, Ted. They cashed a big ticket for me last night because on the first half, they've been covering first halves for me very well. And you hit it on the head. George Karl, he's a run and gunner, doesn't really focus on the defense, but the way that he has been able to handle the egos of Rudy Gay, DeMarcus Cousins and Rondo, and keep all of that lassoed in a positive way. And of course, it had some bumps in the road on the way, but they're playing very good basketball, and they may be a dark horse to give some, there may be teams not wanting to face them in the playoffs. I see that happening if they stay healthy, because nobody is playing the post any better than DeMarcus Cousins right now, period. And Rondo, 17 assists last night. This guy comes to play every night, for George Karl. All right, that other team is Portland, and what is it about them that is quietly cashing tickets, Ted?
Well, the Blazers also have a superstar. I mean, a legitimate superstar in Damian Lillard. I don't know if there's a point guard in the NBA I'd take over Lillard right now. His decision-making with the basketball, his shot selection. Of course, they played awfully in the last, and Lillard probably had his worst final 2 minutes of any game last night of the season. So I'm saying this after the fact, after he kind of blew a potential win against Atlanta. But he is at a ridiculous level. But I mean, remember, think of where Portland was coming into the season, much like Sacramento, a complete afterthought. The Blazers lost 4 of their 5 starters from last year. Everyone left town. LaMarcus Aldridge signs in San Antonio. It's supposed to be a complete rebuild job. This team's supposed to be garbage, and they're not. And a team that's supposed to be garbage and isn't offers inherent value. And you look at Portland, and what's impressed me the most about the Blazers is their low post intensity. The Plumlees of the world.
Yeah.
The Myers Leonards of the world. Ed Davis, a guy who had great potential coming out of North Carolina, and never lived up to it. He's having a good season. Al-Farouq Aminu, another guy, coming out of the ACC, coming out of Wake Forest, it was supposed to be a monster at the NBA level. He's having his best season. They defend the low post, they rebound well, and they've got guards who are making good decisions with the basketball for a team that, again, no hype on Portland. There wasn't supposed to be anything. They're supposed to be a lottery team. They're not. Teams like that, you can make money with.
Ted, you're a wealth of knowledge, and I'm a sponge to that. And when you had mentioned, they lost 4 out of 5 starters, absolutely, you're seeing rebuilding, although you do have one of the best players in Lillard. But last week in a video, you touched on it, and it was Coach Terry Stotts. And you were absolutely right. He has absolutely just grabbed that team, and they're buying into what he's selling per se. But it is just, it's a team that's in the making. And with that coach, I see him doing some big things as time progresses. So good call on that. Is there any other outstanding fact that sticks its head out, or maybe one other team that fits in there? Or are these pretty much the 2 teams that are getting it done?
Oh no, I got a whole host of. But my NBA season. I do the same thing every week. I write down anybody at the beginning of the week. I'm going to take a look at last. I got to. I don't want to. Here I got just a notepad. I'm like, these are my bet on teams. These are my bet against teams. And bet on teams. Certainly I got Portland and Sacramento. Milwaukee's on that list. We'll talk about the Bucks another time.
Okay.
I certainly have Detroit on that list. The Pistons have been making me money all year long. And I almost hate to say it, but the Philadelphia 76ers are on that list as well. So a couple more teams to think about as bet-ons. I've got it. And again, I'm not trying to make extended lists. This isn't the whole league. True. I find 3, 4, 5 bet on teams, 3, 4, 5 bet against teams. I ride them until they stop in their current roles. And that's all I'm doing right now is betting on this handful of teams. We'll talk about some bet against teams maybe next week.
You got it. And Miami and Milwaukee were 2 I was wondering. Philadelphia and Milwaukee were 2 that I was wondering if they were on that list. Okay, viewers, you heard it. Under the radar teams that are money makers and cashing tickets. And one of them in particular has got some under the radar players pitching in from all over. So Portland and Sacramento, you heard it from Ted. Ted, thanks so much for being with us, and we look forward to having you back again with us real soon.